The Book of Daniel, an introduction. The book of Daniel was written in Hebrew, Aramaic, and also in Greek. The outline of the book is as follows. First chapter, God helps Daniel and his friends eat vegetables and avoid compromising their faith. This is the history of Daniel, the personal history. Then we have the prophetic plan for the Gentiles. Second chapter, God reveals 5 major kingdoms of prophecy. Third chapter, God saves Daniel's friend from fiery furnace. Fourth chapter, God humbles Nebuchadnezzar, saves his soul. Fifth chapter, God uses a handwriting on a wall to decree doom. Sixth chapter, God saves the blameless Daniel from hungry lions. Seventh chapter, God reveals more about the 5 major kingdoms. The prophetic plan for Israel in particular. The 8th chapter, God reveals more about the kingdom of Greece. 9th chapter, Daniel prays and God reveals a 70-week prophecy. 10th chapter, Daniel sees Jesus and receives comfort. 11th chapter, God reveals more about the kings of Greece. And 12th chapter, God reveals more about the end of the time. Another outline would be the basic book can be divided into 2 parts, chapter 1 to 6, called as a biographical section where Daniel interprets others' dreams, and second part is 7 to 12 where it's prophetic section, angel interprets Daniel's dreams. The main emphasis in the first part is Daniel the prophet, the second part the prophecies of Daniel. In the first part, there is the introduction and setting Nebuchadnezzar, apocalyptic dreams in chapter 2, historical narratives, political and personal in chapter 3 to 6. In the second part of the prophetic section, the main emphasis is prophecies of Daniel. Daniel's foundational vision is chapter 7, and prophetic visions of near and far future is chapter 8 to 12. The political powers that ruled in Daniel's time, the Babylonian rule with Nebuchadnezzar and Belshazzar ruled. Then we have the Medo-Persian rule of Darius and Cyrus in Daniel's day. Then we have the future Grecian rule, which is Alexander the Great, his 4 generals. And after we have the Roman rule and the last of the Gentile powers. The main theme is God's sovereignty over the kingdoms and his unfolding plan for the future. The key verse is chapter 2 verse 20 to 22, verse 44, and chapter 4 verses 34 to 37. Christ in Daniel, the stones that will crush the earth's kingdoms, chapter 2 34 to 35 and 44. Son of Man, chapter 7 verses 13 to 14, and the coming Messiah will be crucified, chapter 9 verses 25 to 26. Another way of putting the book of Daniel is the focus based on the judgment upon the Gentiles and the hope for the Jews, other 2 major parts, from 1 to 6 and from 7 to 12. The divisions in the first part is judgment upon Gentiles is Daniel's friends in the furnace, chapter 1 to 3, and 4 to 6 is Daniel's faith in the lion's den. The second part is hope for the Jews is chapter 8 to 9 is the beast, the kings and the 70 weeks, and chapter 10 to 12 is the previews of Israel's future. The main topics covered in the first part, the judgment upon Gentiles, is convincing the Gentile God's power, and Daniel interprets other dreams, whereas the second part, hope for the Jews, is convincing Jews of God's purpose, and angel interprets Daniel's dream. The place where all this took place is Babylon in Persia, the time at least 70 years, and the author of the book is the prophet Daniel. Chapter-wise outline would be the first chapter, Israel and Daniel enter into Babylonian captivity. Second chapter, Nebuchadnezzar, vision of the future. Third chapter, the golden image and a fiery furnace. The fourth chapter, Nebuchadnezzar before God. The fifth chapter, the handwriting on the wall. The sixth chapter, Daniel is saved from the lions. The seventh chapter is Daniel's vision of the, and the eighth chapter, Daniel's dream about the ram and the goats. And the 9th chapter, Daniel's vision of the future of Israel. 10th chapter, Daniel sees scared by his dream, and the 11th chapter is a vision of Israel under Persia, and the 12th chapter is the promise of the resurrection. The first part 1 to 4 is about Nebuchadnezzar in Babylon. Chapter 5 is Belshazzar in Babylon. Chapter 6 is Darius in Medo-Persia. Chapter 7 and 8 is Belshazzar in Babylon. Chapter 9 is Darius in Medo-Persia. And 10 to 12 is Cyrus in Medo-Persia. The first 6 books are historical, whereas 7 to 12 book is prophetic. In the historical, Daniel interprets king's dream, whereas in the prophetic, angel interprets Daniel's dream. And then the vision concerning the Gentiles are from chapter 1 to chapter 7, whereas from chapter 7 to chapter 8 to 12, we have the visions concerning Israel. The book till chapter 7 is written in Aramaic, and from 7 to 12, it is written in Hebrew. The key verse is 417, and author is Daniel. The date is around 535 BC. There are many visions of Daniel which show the major superpowers in the world. The Assyrians from 750 to 612 BC, the Babylonians is from 612 to 539 BC, the Persians and the Medes in combined kingdom is 539 to 333 BC, the Greeks in 333 to 327 BC, the Romans from 27 BC to Christ's return. Daniel is a major book that connects Old and the New Testament. Through Daniel, perhaps God revealed the exact time of the birth of Christ to the Magi from the east. Daniel demonstrates God's sovereign control over all the time and the nation. The biblical skeptic date the book to the 2nd century BC to avoid prophetic implications. Daniel is important for anybody who wants to understand Bible prophecy. Not only does Daniel give a significant insight to the book of Revelation, but also relates back into prophecies given to Israel in Leviticus, in Deuteronomy, Chronicles, and Jeremiah. The book of Daniel takes place from 605 to 530 BC, where the Babylonian and Persian kingdoms ruled over Judea. Babylonian was once dominated by the Assyrian Empire. In 621 BC, Nebuchadnezzar becomes the king of Babylon. By 612 BC, Nebuchadnezzar sacked the Assyrian capital of Nineveh. Here we have the map of the different kingdom. The teal color shows the Babylonian Empire, the green shows the Median Empire, the pink the kingdom of Egypt, the olive green shows the Lydian Empire, and the peach shows the Greek influence and colonization. Here the grey shows the Roman expansion, the orange shows the Seleucid expansion, and the kingdom of the north, the Greek Empire, is in orange, and the kingdom of the south is Egypt, that is Ptolemy's empire. Daniel is the main author throughout the contents of this book, and Jesus also attributes this authorship to Daniel in the Olivet Discourse in Matthew 24 verse 15 and Mark 13 verse 14. Next we have from 612 BC, there were Nineveh falls to the Medes and the Babylonians. In 605, Nebuchadnezzar takes Daniel as captive. 603, Daniel interprets the king's dream. 586, the Babylonians destroyed Jerusalem. 580, Daniel's three friends survive the fiery furnace. 550, Belshazzar assumes the throne. And 539, Belshazzar's kingdom falls to Cyrus of Persia. 538, the Jews are allowed to return to Jerusalem. And 537, Daniel is thrown into the lion's den. The deportation of Daniel to Babylon in chapter 1 verses 1 to 7. Daniel is also means God is my judge, was given the name Belteshazzar, Lady protect the king. Hananiah, Yahweh has been gracious, becomes Sadrach, which are probably from the Akkadian verb from Saduraku, meaning I am fearful of a god. Mishael, who is what God is, was given the name Meshach from the Akkadian verb Misaku, meaning I am despised, contemptible, and humbled before my God. Azariah, Yahweh has helped, was named Abednego, servant of Nebu. Negu being a Hebrew variation of the Babylonian name of the god Nebu. Daniel had great reputation, for God gave them knowledge and understanding, literature and learning, in which God gave them ability which was beyond measure, and to understand dreams and vision. Most of the dreams and visions in the Bible occur in the book of Daniel and Zechariah in the Old Testament. We have this Persian Empire in orange, where Daniel reveals that the Persian Empire was the silver breast and arms of the statue of the king's dream, founded by Cyrus in 536 BC. Cyrus issued the famous decree for the Jews to return to their homeland to rebuild their temple. Darius, the second temple of Zerubbabel, completed. During the rules of Xerxes, events of Esther happened, and during the time of Artaxerxes, Jewish state was reformed by Ezra and the walls of Jerusalem were rebuilt by Nehemiah. This entire empire lasted for 200 years and came to an end in 330 BC. The Greco-Macedonian Empire. God revealed to Daniel that the statue's brass belly and the thighs represented the Macedonian Greco Empire. This Macedonian Greco Empire was started by King Philip II and reached its glory during the reign of his son Alexander the Great. Through this military genius, Alexander they conquered the world within 10 years. At age 32, he died at a very young age. Relative peace for Israel under his rule until the last group of Greek rulers, the Seleucid Empire. This Seleucid Empire was overthrown by the Romans in 87 BC. The Roman Empire was one of the greatest empires, and God revealed to Daniel that the statue's iron legs and toes were the Roman Empire. At its peak, it was one of the most extensive, powerful in entire human history. Rome had a profound, lasting influence on the development of modern world. Emperors influential during the New Testament time, especially, were Caesar, Augustus, Nero, Titus, and Domitian. The different dreams and visions time of Daniel shown to the king were firstly representing a man who represented Babylon, Persia, Greece, Rome, and divided Rome. Then there were 4 beasts that came: the lion, the bear, the leopard, and the big beast. Then the fight between the rams and the goats. So all this was shown till the coming of Christ, his passion, death, and resurrection, then the age of the church, and then the times of tribulation, and the second coming of Christ. Reasons for prophecy is to prove that the Bible is divinely inspired, to allow us to recognize where we are in the stream of time, to assist mankind to escape deception, and gives us the confidence that even when we look at the confusion around us, and even when it does not seem like God is always in control, affirms all things were made by Him, for Him, through Him. Jesus is Lord. Purpose of this book is to encourage the Jews by emphasizing the sovereignty of God during the Babylonian captivity, to teach Judah how to live while outside the land. Nebuchadnezzar conducts three sieges of Judah, the first in 605 in 2 Kings 24:1 and Daniel 1:1 at the time of Judah's king Jehoiakim, and those who are taken the best and the brightest, that is Daniel and some princes. The second siege is in 597, 2 Kings chapter 24:10 to 16 and Ezekiel 1:1 to 2. Jehoiachin was Judah's king, and during those time taken by Ezekiel a majority of the people. In the third siege of 586, in 2 Kings 23:1 to 2 and Ezekiel 33:21, Zedekiah, the last king of Judah, and the remnant captured from Jerusalem were taken, and the temple was destroyed. Daniel 1:1 is chronological date 605 in the third year of Jehoiachin. Second chapter verse 1 is 603 and during the time of second year of Nebuchadnezzar. Chapter 5 is mentioned as the night of 10/12 539. Chapter 7:1 in 553 first year of Belshazzar. Chapter 8:1 551 third year of Belshazzar. Chapter 9 verse 1 538 the first year of Darius, and chapter 10 verse 1 536 is the third year of Cyrus. Daniel lived a long age. Chapter 1, when he was taken to captivity, was 15 years old. Chapter 2, interpreting Nebuchadnezzar's first dream of the huge image, he was 17 years old. Chapter 3, Daniel's 3, when cast in fiery furnace, he was around 19 to 20. Chapter 4, interpreting Nebuchadnezzar's second dream of the huge tree, he was around 45 to 50 years. Chapter 5, interpreting handwriting of the wall at Belshazzar feast, is his early 80s. Chapter 6, delivered from the lion's den, he is in his 83. Chapter 7 to 8 is Daniel's visions and dreams around mid-60s, and chapter 9 Daniel's 77 prophecies early 80s, and chapter 10 to 12 final dreams and vision in his mid-80s. The basic chronology is Babylon was ruled by Nebuchadnezzar and Belshazzar from 605 to 539, and Media Persia ruled around 538 to 536 by Darius and Cyrus. The Hebrew word Daniel means God is my judge, Belteshazzar, which means Bel, protect his life. Location is first 13 to 23 years in Jerusalem. Rest of his life is in Babylon and Persia. His family either is a descendant of the king of Judah or a noble of Judah. Not much is known about his wife or children. The main theme and purpose is to emphasize the sovereignty and the power of God over human affairs, especially during dark days, encouragement, comfort, hope for the Jewish exiles and all saints, explanation of the time of the coming, that is 586 until second coming of Christ. The key verse in the book of Daniel is chapter 2 verses 22 and 44. Daniel answered and said, Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his, and he changes the times and the seasons. He removes kings and raises up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. He reveals deep and secret things. He knows what is in the darkness, and light dwells with him. And in the days of these kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people. It shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. The different deportations is 521 Assyrians took the Israelites to Assyria, 513 Assyrians took the Jews to Assyria, then 605 Babylonians took Jews to Babylon, Daniel 1:1 to 6, and 598 Babylonians took Jews to Babylon, 597, 588, 586, 582 Babylonians kept taking Jews to Babylon in the different verses of the Bible. The mysterious figure of the Son of Man in Daniel is a corporate personality representing the people of the holy ones of the Most High, Daniel 7:27. New Testament identified this Son of Man in small letters with Jesus, the Son of Man, in capitals par excellence. Believers of all time found solace, peace, and hope in this inspired message of the unique book. This book of Daniel is important and clear teachings on the resurrection of the dead, Daniel 12:2. They believed that death was not the end. Martyrs of all time faced death with equanimity, if not with joy. Message of the book transcends the immediate intention of the author, that is to strengthen the Jews under persecution, and paves the way for the New Testament proclamation of a kingdom that is founded and ruled by the Son of Man. The book can be divided into three parts. Part 1 is the 6 narratives about Daniel, chapter 1 to 6, Nebuchadnezzar pages, chapter 1, the composite statue, chapter 2, golden statue, chapter 3, cosmic tree, chapter 4, writing on the wall, chapter 5, and the lion's spit, chapter 6. Part 2, the three visions of Daniel from chapter 7 to 12. The four beasts, chapter 7, the ram and the he-goat, chapter 8. The 70 weeks of Jeremiah, chapter 9. The end time, chapter 10 to 12. Part 3 is two more narratives about Daniel, that is chapters 13 to 14. The story of Susanna, chapter 13, and the bell and the dragon, chapter 14. Daniel means God is judge. The unity of the book and its message. There are two parts. The first part consists of stories, chapter 1 to 6. Second part, vision, chapter 7 to 12. In the first part, Daniel interprets dreams of others. Second part, the angel Gabriel who interprets Daniel's dream. The first part is more biographical, containing narratives about Daniel, whereas the second part is autobiographical, where Daniel is speaking the first person and narrating to us about his own visions. The first part, which deals with the Neo-Babylonian Medes and the Persians, is historically inaccurate, whereas the second part, which deals with the Seleucids and the Ptolemies, is more accurate. These are empires. It is assumed that the final author merely just put them together. Like John at Patmos visions and like the gospel writings all were put together, and the teachings of the gospel writers all were compiled. In the same way, this book may be compiled. The significance of this book of Daniel is a unique piece of literature in the Old Testament, only apocalypse in the Old Testament. It is writing that offers hope to Israel when it is being persecuted by Antiochus IV Epiphanes, the Seleucid king. It teaches us that life consists not only of problems but also of mysteries that remain incomprehensible to us. It teaches, in spite of the utter lawlessness of totalitarian system that ruthlessly trample upon the rights of all individuals, make life in society impossible, or degrading human beings, God still is in charge of history, and to him all will have to give an account. No wonder Antiochus and his predecessors are called beasts, and the one who will deliver the faithful from the jaws of these beasts will be called the Son of Man. Daniel 7:13. A careful examination of this book shows that this book is a coherent unity. The main theme of both the parts is that God of Daniel is a God who grants wisdom, Daniel 1:17, who reveals his mysteries to human being, Daniel 2:19-47. The first part, Daniel is able not only to interpret the king's dream, but he is also able to tell Nebuchadnezzar what the dream he had means. Second, Daniel 27, a thing which his own magician acknowledged no human being can do. Daniel 2:1-13. Another idea that binds both the parts together is the doctrine that God's sovereignty or kingship is an everlasting sovereignty, and that his kingdom endures from generation to generation. And King Nebuchadnezzar himself is made to acknowledge in Daniel 4:31, no other God than the God of Daniel. The message of Daniel to his readers, they should not be surprised at what is happening to them during the persecution of Antiochus IV. All this is God's secret plan which he had revealed long ago to Daniel, now being made available to all. God's kingship alone lasts forever. Antiochus, the cruel king, on the contrary, is an ephemeral phenomena bound to disappear in a short time, and then kingship will be conferred on Israel, a kingship that will last forever precisely because it is God's kingship. The time of wrath of the four empires that will diminish and get over, but the time of vindication has arrived. So these are the prophesied empires that will come, that is the Babylonian, the Medo-Persian, the Greece, the Rome, and then the European empire. Daniel and the Bel dragon is fact that the Daniel can kill this dragon through faith shows that it is not divine. The priests of Baal incite the king to punish Daniel, who is a threat to their gods. The narrative leads to the third part, that is verse 31-42, in which Daniel is cast in the lion's pit. God sends his prophet Habakkuk all the way from Judea to Babylon to bring food to Daniel. God does not allow the 7 lions to harm Daniel. Realizing this, the king confesses that there is no other God but the God of Daniel. As we know, the book of Daniel has two parts, that is the Hebrew part, which has the chapters 1-6, and the three visions of Daniel, which is Apocalypse of Daniel, chapter 7-12. The Hebrew book of Daniel has three parts, that is chapters 13-14. The Hebrew book forms a framework of stories within which the Apocalypse is fitted. Major additions are chapter 13, the story of Susanna and the elders, and chapter 14, the bell and the dragon. The songs of the three young men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, is used in the liturgy of the hours in the breviary of the Catholic Church. Chapters 13 and 14 of the Greek book are written in the third person, just like chapter 1 and 6. They contain narratives about Daniel and his God-given shrewdness. These, along with the chapters 1 and 6, form a good framework for the Apocalypse.